Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum, dear students. This session focuses on second language acquisition and sociolinguistics. I hope and expect by the end of this session you would have an understanding of the link of the two. Well, my dear students, when it comes to second language acquisition, or that is generally referred to as SLA in an abbreviated form, we need to understand how the term has specific meanings attached to it and how does it differ from, the term when it is used second language learning. Well, my dear students, L2, that is language 2, or that is second language, its acquisition is the process by which people learn a second language. However, a significant aspect of this learning of second language that makes it being called acquisition of language is that it is learned in natural or natural-like environments with minimum of conscious awareness of it. So this is an automatic process, as it happens in the case of L1. Our mother tongue, the first language that we learn it automatically as we grow up as children in our homes and in our families, in a particular social and a kind of a linguistic environment where, there is certain kind of input in the learning of L1. We are not given instructions, for instance, in terms of the rules of grammar. For example, if my first language is Urdu, I was never given, input in terms of, okay, so this is a noun or this is a verb, so this is a particular construction is constructed, etc. Through the trial and error process, I learned as a child this language in the surroundings where it was being used naturally. So, the same case applies to the learning of second language. And in that particular sense, that is why the term second language acquisition is used. Well, when it comes to the field of second language acquisition, this is a subdiscipline of applied linguistics, which would fall then under sociolinguistics, but also receives research attention from a varied other disciplines, for example, psycholinguistics, sociolinguistics, and other, areas that are related to, for example, the teaching, learning of languages. The primary factor driving SLA, that is second language acquisition, appears to be the language input that the receiver receives or that the learner receives. So what kind of input is provided would determine A, the nature of second language acquisition that would take place, the amount of second language that would be learned, the proficiency in the use of second language that would occur, etc. It all would depend upon what? The input that would be given in that particular language. So, to enable a learner to learn a second language, the input is to be given in the second language. The more the learner or the child would be exposed to L2, the more are the chances of learning it, the more are the chances of performing better in the sociolinguistic context when it comes to the use of L2. So learners become more advanced and the longer they are immersed in the language they are learning. So this immersion, where they are grossed into, where they are put into the situations where they are exposed highly to second language. The more this exposure is, the advanced the learning is. This is also called the input hypothesis, by the way, and actually it was Stephen Krashen who for the first time presented this input hypothesis, and he asserted that this is what makes a distinction between language acquisition and language learning claims. Because, learning is a process that involves more conscious efforts. So, for example, when we go to school, we may learn a new language there. That would be learning. That is, a conscious effort would be made. It would be taught to the learner. Whereas acquisition is more like a natural process that takes place. According to this input hypothesis, the acquisition process in L2, that is language 2, is the same as in L1, as I have already pointed out. the learning process is consciously learning and inputting the language being learned. So, when it comes to acquisition, the input has to be more natural as compared to when it comes to learning another language. However, this goes as far as to state that input is all that is required for acquisition. If input is provided, this means then automatically acquisition process would take place. Automatically, like L1, the child would, take it up and would start using it up, and through the process of, trial and error, would have a grip over the language use and usage. Well, from the sociocultural approaches perspective, when we look at the issue of SLA, sociolinguistic perspective, rejects the idea of SLA as only a psychological process or phenomenon. It attempts to explain it in the social context. So, according to the sociolinguistic perspective on the learning of the acquisition of second language, social factors play a key role, and if a kind of environment or the kind of social factors are provided that support the L2 acquisition process, this would speed up the process of second language acquisition, and the performance of the learner would be far better.